YouTube battle community, Roger Daltrey fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about Roger Daltrey's solo album from 1980, McVicar, the soundtrack to the movie of the same name. This has often been called a Lost Who album, and that's because all of the guys from the Who play on this album, along with a bunch of other people too. And it's pretty hazy as to who's playing what on what song, or if all of them are on the same song at the same time. That said, this is one of Roger Daltrey's best solo albums. His voice on this thing is fantastic. The songwriting is top notch. There's really no filler on this thing, and that makes for a really, really awesome listen. I've yet to see the actual movie, but from what I've read about it, it was just a guy who robbed a bank. And I can't find any other information about this guy beyond like he robbed a bank. So they made a movie about him. But that said, the music on here is fantastic, and it was recorded during the Who's transition time between when Keith Moon passed away and when Kenny Jones started filling in, and eventually they led up to the Face Dances album. In this year, Pete had released Empty Glass earlier in the year, I think in April or May. This came out June 1st, and then later that year, into July and August, they started recording with the album that became Face Dances. So this is they were really busy at this time. They were doing film projects with The Kids Are Alright, the Quadrophenia movie, and they were touring. They had done some tours with Kenny Jones to kind of warm him up and get him used to the band and see what the audience reaction was. And things were gelling pretty well at that time, or so we thought. And so this album was made because Roger was really into acting. I think he's a great actor. And his solo albums throughout the 1970s really aren't too bad. There's some really good stuff here and there. But overall, I like this album a lot. There's a grittiness to it. There's a growl to it that is just unmistakably his voice and his presence. And I love the music on it so much. So the music was recorded at a different place. His vocals were recorded at a different place. So it wasn't like there was a group setting the whole time this was done. There are moments where you're like, all right, that's John's bass playing, or all right, that's probably Pete's guitar playing. Kenny Jones's drum style is a little harder to make out, but I think if I really spent like a ton of time playing this thing over and over again, I could probably figure out which one he was. That said, really not bad album. So let's just jump into it. The song "Bitter and Twisted" opens this thing up, and I love the big like synthy organs in this thing. I love how Roger growls throughout this whole thing. He does that a lot throughout this album. But the way he says, bitter, twisted, there's just a real heavy groove throughout this thing. It's an excellent opener. And it must have been a fun session. You can tell that there's an atmosphere of enjoyment throughout the recording of this track. Which makes me wonder, like, how busy were they all that Roger couldn't have been there at the same time, or they couldn't have just arranged it to all be in the same room together at the same time and make this music. But that said, it works pretty well. Just a Dream Away. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. It's absolutely fantastic. The production on it is so perfect to match the level of emotional honesty throughout this track. Roger's got a really nice soft vocal on this song. I love the great slide guitars that happen throughout it. The descending melody line is really nice. It's got a really great vibe. It's just a late night kind of slow jam kind of feel. But I really, really enjoyed the song a lot. For me, this is one of my favorite songs on the album, and one of Roger's best solo vocal performances ever, I think. Just an awesome track. Escape Part 1. This song to me is kind of hilarious, but kind of awesome, because it's got these weird computery synths happening throughout to like create this atmosphere of tension and anxiety, which it does effectively, but it also sounds a little cartoony at the same time. There's also like some of those like high-paced flutes happening throughout. Really like charging bass. There's bongos. So it gives it this like high-tailed pursuit kind of feel, which it does very well. And I guess the only way to convey that is through slightly cartoony sounds, but it definitely gets the job done. It sounds like an escape. It sounds like that. It's got this whole feel of just like you're running around, you're getting away from the dogs chasing you. It works. And then White City Lights is the song after that. It's a real kind of a slow burn ballad. I love the guitars on this one in particular, and Roger's voice has a really nice calm quality to it, but really assured at the same time. And it really transcends. You feel the emotion in his voice, and that's one thing he's always been amazing at doing, is like taking words and giving them life. But the way he sings like "I'm in love with you," it's really gripping, and his vocals are just fantastic throughout this whole album. I mean, this was like peak Daltrey anyway. He's always had a great voice, but hearing him in this time, starring in a movie, knowing he's the lead guy, there must have been a whole other level of confidence in his singing to just like prove the point home of what was going on storytelling wise. And then you end the side one with "Free Me," which is absolutely one of the best songs out there from Roger. And this totally sounds like it could have been a Who song. Maybe the guys are on this one. The guitars almost sound like Joe Walsh-like, even though he's not on this thing, but it sounds like his style of playing. So I don't think it's Pete. It might be John's bass. There's a couple of moments where it does sound like him, but it might be him on there. This song hit number 53 in the charts. It was a single. It did pretty well, so 53 is okay. That means it had some moderate airplay. But the screaming on this thing, and the growling, and the yelling, and the excellent tight rock of that 4/4 time signature, there's just so much excitement, and Roger just screams his ass off the entire time, and it's a complete rocker. That just screams, "Free me!" I mean, it's awesome. Such a cool song. Side 2 opens with "My Time Is Gonna Come," and this is like a real fast-paced, like Peter Gunn kind of feel. Roger keeps up the whole time, without losing a beat. The chorus is really infectious. I like the big background yaz that happen throughout this thing. There's a hand clap solo. You don't get those too often. It's a fun song. It's got really kind of a badass kind of feel to it, and I think that's Pete on guitar on this one. That sounds like his style of playing, the kind of like sporadic, kind of jumpy kind of feel. Totally sounds like him. "Waiting for a Friend," not the Rolling Stones song. This went to number 4 on the charts, or number 104. I'm sorry, that's a big jump. 104 on the charts. I love the breaks in the chorus in this one. It's got like a country rock kind of feel, and also a real classic rock kind of feel. Like it sounds like something you would put on the 70s station on right now, and that would be on it. It blends in with that like Bad Company, Foreigner type of sound of the time, and I really like it a lot. Escape Part 2, again, it's kind of like Escape Part 1, just more of that fast-paced rhythm, more of the bongos, more of the flutes. This has a really crazy guitar riff on this one. It's kind of like bizarre riffing throughout the whole thing, and lots of hi-hat work on this track, which gives it that shuffling kind of continued movement pace. Really not bad. "Without Your Love," this track went to number 20 on the charts back in the day, and this is just an excellent song. There's really nice lyrics, really sweet lyrics. I like the passion behind it, and Roger's vocals, again, he really can do an excellent job at singing sweetly or delicately, with a lot of passion behind his voice. He does that so well on this song. It's just a very sweet song. The overall production on it is really nice. It's an excellent blend. It's a good package. The message behind it is really honest, and I like the way he presented it. And then you end with the lead song on here, "McVicar," as the last song. There's really great piano chords in this one. That's totally got to be John on bass. That bass sounds like him, that big thunderous boom kind of sound. And again, back to Roger screaming his ass off, and it sounds to me like a John Entwistle solo song. That's kind of what I took from it. I could totally see this being on like Whistle Rhymes or something. It sounds like something he would have done back in the day. And that's it. That's the entire album. It's a really short album. I think it clocks in at maybe a half hour or just over a half hour, so there's not much there. That said, I really, really enjoyed it a lot. I'm not sure how this was packaged originally, but there's like, the copy I have has 2 inner sleeves. One with like an MCA logo on it, which I don't think is correct. And then this one, which actually has movie stills. So you got some pictures of Roger, who had just cut his hair off at that point. That was the way he looked back in the 60s. And someone also was kind enough to keep the original sticker. Look at that. So that's the thing that I do myself these days, but someone was doing that back in 1980. So whoever owned this album, thank you. And I'll show you the, let me get it back in there. Show you the label here too. It's on the old Polydor label. There you go. So yeah, overall, this really does feel like it could have been a Lost Who album. Um, One thing I would like to do would be to take parts of Empty Glass, which came out around this time, and McVicar, and maybe even some of Too Late the Hero, John's solo album from 1981 or two, and make like a Lost 1980 Who album. I think that'd be kind of fun to put together because you can make a really solid album. I mean, Empty Glass is a fantastic album on its own. I think this album's great on its own, but it would be cool to see a different construction of The Who in 1980 because Roger was kind of upset with Pete for putting out Empty Glass, but a lot of those songs could have worked really well for The Who. In particular, the song Empty Glass he liked a lot, and he thought that could have been well for The Who, which they did demo out themselves around the time Who Are You was being made with, there's a demo with John and Keith on it, so with some slightly different lyrics, but who knows what could have happened. I think Empty Glass needs to exist on its own, I think this needs to exist on its own, but I think it would be fun to kind of like make my own mixtape of the best bits from albums like this and try to create a Who album out of it. So yeah, really not much else to say about this thing beyond it just being a really solid album and easily one of Roger's best solo albums, hands down. Just a really fun album to listen to. Great vocals, there's lots of excellent rockin' moments, there's some really sweet moments with excellent acoustic guitar work, and The Who is sprinkled throughout this thing, so it really is like a Lost Who album. So that's it. Here's the back cover. It's really shiny. It's a nice, cool, shiny cover to it. If I had to give this thing a rating, I think I'd give it probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's definitely a very enjoyable listen. I don't know if it's like super essential, but if you're into The Who and you want to hear something else that's Who-ish, then yeah, check this out for sure. So 8 out of 10. My name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with Roger Daltrey, McVicar soundtrack, 1980. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.